Hey everyone, it's the Talk About It podcast. I'm Lauren Fulmer.
I'm Victor Dantas.
And we're excited to be putting out another episode today. Today we get to sit down with a vision therapist. We have Susan Whitcomb. Susan, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Looking forward to talking a little bit about your own story and journey, but vision therapy is making some major strides, being able to help people of all ages.
Right.
Identify some underlying problems and being able to get things turned around on many different levels.
Right.
So I'm excited to kind of uncover and peel some of that back with you. I did get an opportunity probably 8 to 10 years ago to sit and listen to a gentleman by the name of Pete Kehoe share his kind of story and some of these findings and what he was seeing going on and how they've been able to help. It was very interesting stuff. So I'm excited to be able to kind of revisit that with you, but also share with Victor and our listeners. And I'm sure even since I heard Pete's speech, if you will, 8-10 years ago, there's probably been even more findings.
So many, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Susan, why don't you just start off a little, tell us about yourself. Who is Susan Whitcomb?
Well, I was born and raised in Galesburg. Lived a short stint in Burlington, Iowa when I was 3. Remember nothing about it. And I lived in Morton for about 10 years when I was married. My husband passed about 12 years ago. So I moved back to Galesburg, and that's when I kind of began my journey into being a vision therapist.
Okay.
So, and I sang in a band for 20 years. I grew
You sang
up,
in a band?
I did. My dad owned music stores, and he had a band, and I just kind of grew up. I started singing professionally at 11.
That's
Nice.
cool. That's
So-
cool.
So what type of band were you in? What type of songs were you singing?
We did huge variety. Of course, back in the day, my dad was country, and I thought that was so not cool.
Right.
But oddly enough, all my big opportunities always came. I fronted a lot of big name country bands and was offered some pretty good things out of that, but turned them down because I had a family and wanted to be home with them. So, yeah.
You ever been to the Grand Ole Opry?
I have never been to the Grand Ole Opry.
Oh, yeah.
Where is
I was
that?
always too busy
In
with my
Nashville.
own.
Nashville?
It's like the home of country.
Yeah. The home
Okay.
of country music, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, especially the older. I don't know if the Grand Ole Opry is still a thing with today's country. I know
It is, yeah. It's not. They used to have be in the Ryman Auditorium, and they've moved to the newer place now because
Okay.
it was just too old, and I
Gotcha.
guess got kind of a bad thing going
Yeah,
on.
it's one of our family vacation. My family would take us almost annually
Yeah.
to Nashville, and we'd sit in the Ralph Emery show.
Oh, yeah.
It's an old country
Yeah.
stuff.
No,
You know?
yeah.
Not many people really remember Ralph
Yeah.
Emery, at least like 40 and under. But
Yeah.
we go and listen to people sing at the Grand Ole Opry and in the Hee Haw episodes.
I had so much fun when I did that. That was a fun way to spend my youth and part of my adulthood. I opened for the Bellamy Brothers and Mickey Gilley, Johnny Lee back in the Urban Cowboy days. Just quite a few people. I could give you a
Yeah.
list, but it's a lot.
That's cool. So when's the last time you were part of a live performance singing?
Oh gosh. After my husband passed, I did a piano bar thing for a while just because I needed something to do.
Sure.
And my kids are all grown and on their own and not in town anymore. So I just was bored and I needed something to do. And I'm currently getting ready to start performing again with a guy named Ron Pointer. And he was in a band called Even Steven. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they played quite locally since I think the 70s.
Nice.
But I think we're just going to do a duo coffee bar type stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Coffee
Are
house,
you
wineries.
excited to
Hey,
kind of
it's
get
just,
back
it's
in?
fun. We're having a blast practicing right now. And yeah, we have some bookings and yeah, it's fun.
Good.
What instruments do you play?
I play piano and I play guitar.
Okay.
Or I wouldn't say I really play piano. I play keyboards and guitar.
Okay.
Can you play the piano and sing at the same time, or play the guitar and sing at the same
I
time?
can, but I don't prefer to.
I'd say that's tough.
It's my favorite thing is just to sing.
Yeah.
That was always my thing.
Do you have any music talent?
I can play like percussion, like instruments, like I mean, not like drums. Drums, I think, is too advanced for me.
Right.
But how do you call the cajon? Cajon,
Oh
right?
yeah. The
Cajon. What's the name of it? Cajon,
Yeah.
yeah. I know how to play that. Yeah, anything that's like bass and percussion, I
I got
can play.
nothing.
Yeah, you
I
got
can't.
nothing.
I can't even sing.
But you can talk.
Yeah. Well, most people don't want to hear that either. But,
I can really talk too. I grew up in a family of 5 girls, so
okay.
there's
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah,
That's
you were
cool.
having to fight for words to
Yeah.
get in, or are you the youngest, oldest? Where do you fall?
Oldest.
Ah.
Oldest of 5, yes.
Okay.
You learn to talk very fast, or you just didn't get a word in.
Right. That's cool. So, anyone else in the family get into music? I know you say your dad kind of had a music store.
Yeah, my dad had a music store and he had a band and he had Opry shows. Do you remember the old Opry show type stuff?
Yeah.
And I started singing on his Opry show when I was like 11, I believe. And so, yeah, but none of my sisters. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, just me.
What about singing, Victor? You got some vocals?
No,
No good.
I can try, but
No, we won't put you out. No, that's funny. So let's talk vision therapy. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what got you even in moving in that direction?
and what is vision therapy?
Vision
there you
therapy. Vision therapy is really cool. Actually, people think of our vision as our eyesight. They get that confused. Our eyesight is actually, the ability to see clearly, like what they would call 20/20 vision, or but vision actually refers to the way our eyes and our brain process things together. So in vision therapy, let's say someone has amblyopia, which most people refer to as a lazy eye. The brain and the eye just simply aren't communicating together. That eye is probably lazy because there's a little bit of a strabismus. The eyes aren't coming together correctly so that they can focus on an object together. So they may be having double vision. And then one of the eyes just shuts off. And because the brain shuts it off, because the brain's like, that's too confusing. I'm just shutting an eye off. Well, then with the one eye, you don't have the ability to see dimension. It's hard to have depth perception. It's hard to see things moving towards you correctly. So it really, really can complicate things. And then I deal with a whole host of other things too, but that's just one. So vision is the way our brain and eyes interact. So what I do in vision therapy is I train brain to eye communication. We try to open the communication back up.
How do you do that?
A lot of repetitious exercises. And every specific thing that we work with requires different things. So my day is never the same.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
So what are some things, I know like typically you'll hear a lot of people like, man, doctors will maybe push some medication or pills to, identify something, possibly ADHD or whatever, but we're finding out quite often there's not a learning disability, there's not an attention issue, there's actually, it's this vision issue.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what are some ways that you guys are able to identify that and also, I guess get that message out to get more to look at this vision possibility.
And that's my whole goal, is to just get education out about vision therapy. So we work with children that lots of times are put in learning disability classes and probably don't need to be there. They can't read. Lots of times your eyes don't move together correctly across a page. Maybe your eyes are going like this and then one eye skips over here, and whichever eye's picking up the text the most. So the sentence may read the little red wagon, and your eyes may go the wagon little red, the wagon red took a little, your eyes are jumping back and forth. So it's really interesting. People and a teacher can try to work with a child the way they're taught to work with a child for reading, but it's not going to work with a kid who has what we call saccadic issues, saccades. Mm-hmm. So if a child's eyes are doing that and they're jumping all over the place when they read, we never notice that, because how many times do you get in front of your child and watch their eyes when they read? You don't. You usually sit beside them when they read. You watch them sit at a desk when they read. You watch them hold a book. You don't get in front of their eyes and see what was going on. So a lot of times kids just who have a simple reading problem, it can be corrected if it comes from saccades, So I had a little girl come to me once. She was in 5th grade reading at a 1st grade level. And by the time she got done with vision therapy, she was reading at 5th grade level.
Nice.
It just took training the brain and the eyes to work together correctly to read.
Yeah. I started reading this book, and it was talking about, and you've probably seen this, where there's a picture, and you either see the old lady or the young lady. Mm-hmm. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't seen that book particularly.
Right, but so, and this is, I've seen it in other places, but basically what it's pointing out to us is, your left brain, your right brain.
Right.
That communication with your eyes.
Right.
Where I can look at this and see a young woman, where you or Victor might look and see an old lady. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, well, what do you mean you don't see the old lady? Like I'm looking right at it.
I know what type of pictures you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. And what this book was talking about really was, it was actually trying to use it as a comparison on like how we might look at a person or a situation and our perception is blank, you know? Well, it's someone else's perception of how the situation or event or issue took place and went down. They're seeing the young lady. Yeah. You're seeing the old. You might be taking it personal, and the other that's what it was using.
Yeah, it's completely. Yeah.
But from that standpoint, right? Like you'd be looking at a kid, like, why do you keep reading this? The little wagon should
Yeah.
And like, what are you talking about? And it can become so frustrating.
It's frustrating for teachers. It's frustrating for the parents, especially, and the children. The poor kids. They're just beside themselves because they're trying so hard, and they just simply cannot do it with that problem. So,
and the poor kid, they don't understand. They don't,
And what's sad is the parents don't know that there's help for that.
Right.
And how Sorry. How do you train? What's like? Can you go over like a step by step, or that's information you don't want to?
Oh no, I don't. I'll share anything.
Yeah. How's the training? Like the girl that you gave the example.
Right. We start off reading simple charts with letters. We take the words away.
Okay.
Because we can develop a cheating mechanism. Maybe we see a picture of a red wagon, so we can't read the little red wagon in order. But we look up there and we see that picture, so we know it's a red wagon. So we take all the photos away, all the words away, and we just give them simple letters. And we have them read letters in sequence. And there's a big chart full of letters that I use. We read it in different directions, different ways we read it. We may read it, outside in, from the bottom up, from the up down, all the way across. We just do it in different directions, diagonally. We do it in all different directions so that their eyes learn to work together to read no matter what's going on. We do things after they get really good at it. We start doing things with distractions sometimes.
Okay.
Because, like, I work with Dr. Carter, and he's wonderful. And one of my favorite quotes he ever said was, "Life doesn't stop around us just because we're trying to use our eyes." Right. So you may be in school, and some kid might be throwing spitballs at the teacher or something, and you're trying to focus, but this stuff's going on here and there and everywhere. So after we get the eyes and the brain working together, then sometimes we try to distract them a little bit and help them keep on task at the same time. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot of repetition. Yeah. It is a lot of repetition.
What's some of the main symptoms that parents could see in their kids that they would need help?
Well, I work with accommodative insufficiency. I mean, I'm going to go down a list, so it's going to be a lot probably, and I may forget some things. But accommodative insufficiency would be the kid that takes forever to copy off the board at school. What's happening with this child is they're looking at the board, they're reading, and then they have to look at their paper to write, and it's taking their eyes an extremely long time to focus again on the paper. And then after their eyes focus and they write down what they need to write, and then they look back up and everything's blurry again, and it takes a long time to focus again. So this child isn't slow. Mm-hmm. They're not slow on purpose. They're not lollygagging around, whatever they're being accused of, or they don't have a learning disability per se. It's just that their eyes aren't clearing well enough. So in that case, we work with lenses. A lot of lenses that get from thinner to thicker, and then we go from thicker to thinner, and we have them do a lot of reading and charts with the lenses so that their eyes and their brain starts to understand it needs to do that quicker. And then once it's corrected, it doesn't go backwards. The brain just automatically goes, "Oh, that's a lot better. I'm not doing that again," So we know, that doesn't go backwards. Well, you don't have, not something you have to go back and repeat over and over again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's just one. That's accommodative insufficiency. We also work with visual memory. So when I look at the wall behind you, I see the green and black honeycomb tiles. And I can pick out a pattern at those. So I may be able to look down and recreate the same pattern because visually I took a picture. So visual memory would be the kids that don't have that ability, that look at something and they can't remember 2 seconds later what they saw.
Yeah.
Because their brain just and the eyes aren't working together. Because when we function in our lives, our eyes see an object and we have to discern what that object is, how far away it is it moving? If you had a strabismus, let's say, and your eyes aren't working well together and you don't have a good depth perception, I can set a bottle of water here and a child might reach for it over here because their eyes aren't quite where they should be on that object. They may be thinking they're looking right at it, but it seems like it's here to them. Or they knock things over a lot because it's here and they think it's back there and they reach up and knock it over. So there's a lot of things like that. Visual memory, visual motor visual motor skills, gross motor skills. So we work with gross motor skills, gross motor laterality. It would, a lot of times when our vision is formed is when we're infants. So maybe we don't crawl for a long enough time. We have a funny little crawl. We scoot on our bum, kind of take the leg and hike it up. All those things can affect the way our vision develops. So we run people through a series of what we call chapters. There are 9 of them. They're physical exercises. We have them laying on mats. I know all of this seems like it has absolutely nothing to do with vision, but it does. So we work through all that. Reversals we work with, which would be, a lot of people think dyslexia is just getting letters backwards. I can't help dyslexia, but I can help reversals. Reversals would be when you get your P's and Q's and B's and D's backwards, or you see an E and you print it backwards or whatever. Those type of things. We just do a series of exercises with reversals. Reversals are very, what you were talking about, left brain, right brain oriented. So lots of times a kid will be left or right challenged, and a lot of the letters then seem backward forward to them. So we do a lot of left right exercises with them, and it's just amazing. What's amazing is to watch these kids, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, go from being in learning disabled classes getting D's and F's to, when I'm done with them, getting B's and C's, maybe A's even.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch their confidence develops. They start to be self-confident. They realize they can do this.
Right.
Because they've been told their whole life, either by someone else or by themselves, that they can't.
Well, I can just think of myself. I never had a problem seeing or, blurry or any of that. And it was probably 5 or 6 years ago I went and got my eyes checked. They actually said I needed glasses for reading and computer screen time. And so when I put these glasses on, I was like, oh,
right?
I actually wasn't seeing as good as I thought I was. I mean, it was so much more clear. And so, as a child, I can't imagine, this is just, these few years you've been on this earth, and you're like, this is normal. It's
normal. That's how they think it is.
Right.
Yeah, they don't know.
Yeah. And then not even knowing to be able to express and say, hey, I thought the water bottle's here.
Right.
Yeah, they're not picking that up on their own.
And the parents are like, why are you always spilling things? And it's like, it's not their fault,
Yeah.
So I have a lot of parents. The first day we have vision therapy and I explain a lot of this to them. I have a lot of moms sitting in my office crying.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Why didn't I know? I'm like, how can you tell?
Yeah.
You can't be inside your child's head and you can't see through their eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a person, say, who's had a stroke and has an eye paralysis or just a cranial nerve palsy. And I had one of these, so I can speak from personal experience here. I knew right away. I had double vision. I knew immediately that was not normal. But a child, if they have always had double vision, there is no way for them to know any different.
Is there a series of tests or a protocol for you to do for attention deficit with those things, like a eye per? Yeah.
We do a whole series of tests when they first come in to determine what exactly the vision problems are. Attention deficit, a lot of times teachers and educators believe that our kids have attention deficit. Okay, but if you can imagine being 6 and all the energy you have, and your eyes you're looking over here, and then all of a sudden you're looking over here, and then you're looking over there, and you're looking over there, and your eyes are just everywhere, and you can't make sense of it, you're jumpy.
I do that as a 40-year-old.
Right.
Yeah, I do that too.
I'm serious.
All the time.
Yeah. Good, huh?
Yeah. So you can imagine how jumpy you are then.
Yeah.
And so lots of times, not all the time, but most of the time, when the vision calms, the whole person calms. I see that. I see that in a lot of kids. I've had kids diagnosed with ADHD, some incorrectly and some correctly. But almost always by the time we're done with vision therapy, if they're on any type of meds, they've completely decreased. I mean, they've decreased so much they're barely on any.
Good.
So it's good to see that too, because lots of times the kids are a little, slowed down by the meds or don't feel so
For
good.
sure. Yeah. Well, and on top of that too, there's a cost inquired with medication. So, most people, I would like to assume, they don't, you don't want to be taking medication,
right,
especially if it's not needed. So if this is an outlet that could be, through a session or two, find out, is this something
it's usually
that
not a session or two. It's usually a few more than that.
Sure, but at least be able to get some sort of no, your child actually does need to be on the medication.
Yeah.
Or no, your child doesn't.
And I'm not an authoritative person about,
sure,
I can't diagnose a child and say you do or don't have it, but I've seen results. And I see what happens after they go through vision therapy and how things improve for them, even if that is the case. I think in the 7 years I've been at Kehoe Eye Care, I think I've only seen 2 of my patients that actually did still need medication.
Yeah, and there's going to be, right? But yeah, this is just so interesting to me. And actually, without saying names, we had a mutual friend, reach out and says, hey, you got to sit with Miss Susan here.
Yeah.
Doing tremendous things for our family and our child. Yeah. So, as any parent, when you see your child starting to make, these strides in getting things figured out and being like, oh man, what a peace of mind to be able to see.
Are you both parents?
Yeah.
Okay. So, as a parent, your children are everything too. I mean, you would do anything for your children if they were struggling. And I think it's got to be so frustrating for parents in these situations where they know there's a problem, but they have no idea there's help. Because a lot of people just simply don't know there's help.
Right.
They don't know that this exists even. It's been around for somewhere between 150, 200 years. But it's very, very, very few optometrists have vision therapy clinics. Kehoe Eye Care has one. I believe there's one in Peoria, and if you go further south, there's not even one as far as Springfield. And if you go north, the closest you're going to find is Cedar Rapids, Iowa City.
Yeah, so not nearly enough.
I have patients from Springfield. I have a patient from Springfield area right now. I have patients from all over, up north, down south. I mean,
wow.
It's sad. And they come twice a week and they drive.
Right.
So they may drive 2 hours here, 2 hours home.
Well, I would ask, why are they doing that? Because they're seeing the benefits.
Because they love their kids.
Right.
And because they're finding help for them and they realize this is the way to go, and then they start to see the results, and then they keep coming, until we're done. So,
and for your kid, man, I would drive mine to California.
Yeah, you would. You would.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
So Victor has a young boy,
3-year-old, 3 months old.
Oh, he's
He
very
grows so
little.
fast. Yeah, 3 months.
3 months. So yeah, he's a new father.
Uh-huh.
I have a 14 and a 12-year-old. So they, and even just talking, I remember doing homework, especially with my daughter. She was struggling with some math and at sometimes switching numbers or
and that's another. Yeah.
And she's a great student, gets good grades. And I remember kind of losing my mind on her, what do you keep doing this? What are you talking about? And so, I know you're smarter than this.
You're smart. And that's just it. These parents know their child's smart. I know she's smart. I'll give you another example in a minute, but I'm going to go back to what you just talked about with numbers. So, when we were talking about reading and how you can skip the words, that same will translate into numbers when you're trying to do a math problem. You can skip, switch numbers, very easily do that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, as a parent, it's frustrating enough not really remembering how to do all this homework anyways.
Yeah.
But then like helping them, and then when you, like you say, that would, for me, man, I would be like, I know you know this stuff.
Yeah, and she did.
And she did, but and not necessarily had this problem, but
right.
Where even something as simple as like this, and then let alone have an issue like that at hand, I can't even imagine the level of frustration that you would get to.
That's the thing. I had a patient one time come to me that was 17 years old and had been homeschooled her whole life because they wanted to put her in learning disability classes. And her mom said, no, she's brilliant. I'm not doing that. So her mom, good for her mom, kept her home and homeschooled her. And by the time she came to me, she spoke, I want to say 5 different languages fluently. She was 17. She was brilliant, yet she couldn't take her SATs because her vision would not allow her to take her SATs. So we got through with vision therapy and she was able to take her SATs. Another thing she couldn't do, what's so important for you when you're 16, 17 years old? Drive a car. She couldn't do that either. And now she can.
Good.
That's crazy.
So it's fun. It's funny. You don't understand. And even I didn't understand when I first when I first was a vision therapist, I didn't understand the impact I was going to have on people's lives, and not just their lives currently, but the trajectory of their lives.
Right.
So
typically once you're able to make that connection from the brain and the eye, as far as vision, did I understand you correctly? Usually like once it's connected, it's connected.
Yeah.
Like the brain says.
There are instances, let's say someone has had, let's just pick a condition, alternating exotropia, which means both of your eyes sit outward instead of inward. Most people refer to it as wall-eyed or cross-eyed. Okay. So let's say we have someone who's wall-eyed, and I don't get them until they're 20 years old. And their whole entire life, their eyes have sat out like this. So I can bring their eyes in. That's easier to do than bring them out. But I can bring them in and I can get them converging on an object together and I can get them focusing together. But they're 20 years old and they have done this for 20 years. They still will probably, not always, but sometimes have the ability to just take an eye and go, whoop. It's a great party trick.
Yeah.
However, what I teach a person in that instance is you teach them, okay, you can still do this. And lots of times when they're tired, they'll kind of revert to that. But I teach them how to snap it back. So we don't.
So you can fix if someone is literally cross-eyed? You guys can fix that? Okay.
Actually make their eyes become normal or just...
Yeah.
Okay.
That
Whatever
takes
happened
longer,
to, like,
and not
covering...
always, but that takes longer to correct, to bring them out. Because if you think about your eyes, you can probably cross them into your nose, but you can't take them out by your ears.
Right.
So that takes,
Try it. I say try it.
I did.
I mean, you can take them in, but you can't get them out here. It's like you just can't do it.
Yeah.
So to bring a person's eyes out is harder. If their eyes are already out, to bring them in is easier.
So I remember, maybe this is still applied or not, but wouldn't you normally, like in the 80s or 90s, I feel like they would cover one up to make it.
We don't do that anymore.
Right?
Yay.
But that's what I remember it being, right? They would like cover one to make it to get the other one to start getting straight.
Right. So what happens most of the time when someone has amblyopia, which means you just use one eye and the other eye is tired and it shuts off, which is why they would patch back then. Usually it's strabismic amblyopia. You're welcome.
Yeah. I bet you're good at, she's
eyes.
good at crossword puzzles or something. I feel like you know all these big words and stuff.
I kind of do. But strabismic amblyopia very simply means your eyes are not positioned correctly together. So what happens is you usually have double vision and the brain shuts an eye off. And as the brain shuts the eye off, only one eye gets stronger and the eye that's shut off gets weaker. And they'll wander because you're literally not even using that eye anymore. So it'll go outward, it'll go inward, it'll go up, it'll go down. You can't You're just not using it. It's over here, but it's off.
Yeah.
Because the brain didn't want to see two of everything anymore. But like I said earlier, you lose 3D. You don't see in 3D anymore. You see everything like a flat photograph, if with one eye. So in order to get the brain to turn the eye back on, they used to think if you just patch the good eye and make them use the other eye, that eye will get stronger. In theory, that works slightly, but it doesn't crack the problem of getting the eyes to work together in tandem and stereo. So we used to think it was that we had to patch an eye, but the last vision therapy conference I went to was probably before COVID, and basically they came out with this very bold statement that patching like that for 24/7, you know what I'm saying? They used to put the patch on the kids forever. It's almost like child abuse. And they had us all put a patch on and walk around with a patch during our lunch hour. I had to rip mine off. I couldn't stand it. Mm-hmm. So and you should try it. It's amazing. If you take away one of your eyes, everything's different. You bump into walls. You don't see, it's just the whole thing's different. So now we use a lot of red-green glasses with red-green activities. So if I take a pair of glasses and I put a red lens on, say your right eye is the strongest eye. If I put a red lens on your right eye, it's going to make all that red print on that chart I'm giving the child very weak and very hard to see. So they have to use their left eye. Now their eye's not patched. They're still using both eyes. Both eyes are still working, but they're having to use their weaker eye more. Right. And that'll bring the strength up without making them feel like we've taken away half of their face, Yeah. Yeah. So real interesting things that we call that creating a monocular field and a binocular field. Mm-hmm. So
out of 10 kids, how many of those do you think could need vision therapy? How common is it? And do you think that industry, that field is still developing? Right. Meaning that like the parents don't even know that there exists? Mm-hmm.
I feel, in my estimation, this is just mine. It's not a white paper written or anything like that.
We won't put you on Google.
I would say I could go into a school and into their learning disability classes, and I'm going to say somewhere between 50 to 80% of those kids I could help.
Whoa.
Wow.
But our educators don't know about vision therapy. They don't learn about that in school. Our pediatricians don't know much about vision therapy. They don't learn about that in school. Vision therapy is specifically an optometric practice. An ophthalmologist will try to do surgery to correct your eye. However, it still doesn't mean the two eyes are going to work together. It may look better to everyone else, but it still may not. It may be corrected, but sometimes not.
Right.
There's not a guarantee there. So, like I said, if you have an eye that comes in here and an eye that goes straight ahead, and they do surgery and pull this muscle so this eye comes back out here, it still may not be lined up with this. It may be higher, it may be lower, it may be a little bit off still. Yeah.
Let's play a game of Mythbusters for a second.
All right, Mythbusters.
Do carrots really improve your eyesight?
I think carrots have vitamins in them that are beneficial to your eyes. I'm not sure that they improve your eyesight, and I wouldn't be the person to ask for that anyway.
All right. My next one is, did my mom lie to me when she said if I cross my eyes too long, they'll stay that way?
Yes.
I knew it, Mom. I knew it. I can do it all I want.
I'm not saying, however, that your mom lied to you. If she believed that myth, then she was telling you what she
knew.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. She watches all of these, so I just want to make sure. Did your mom ever tell you that?
No, in Brazil we say that ants, like literally the ants, like little ants, if you eat them, it's good for your vision.
So how many ants have you ate? Tell the truth, dude.
When you're a kid, you eat a bunch of them. But
you ate some?
Yes, of course. Every Brazilian knows that. Oh. I mean, we don't know that it helps your vision. We do that because
you have good eyesight, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe...
It's the ants.
It's maybe just Brazilian ants. Yeah. Because I've never heard that about the American ants.
Like those tiny ones. I don't know how you call it. It's just ants.
I wonder why they would say that. They just want the kids to eat ants?
Yeah, I
maybe.
think so.
They're protein, right?
Yeah. What other myths and weird stuff do you maybe hear or come across here just like, nah, that's just not true?
Well, I think not really myths so much as the parents sometimes think they've done something that caused this.
Oh, sure.
And it's not that they've done anything that caused this. I do believe, however, a lot of it is hereditarily passed down from generation to generation. And I get a lot of parents when they're working with the kids on their activities, they're like, well, I could never do that either. You know,
Right.
I hear a lot of that all the time. And like I said, I don't think there are any white papers. I don't think there's any official thing saying, yes, there is a genetic thing for that or whatever. But I see it all the time. I see it all the time. And I've had relatives. I've had cousins from the same dads or the same moms or whatever come in at the same time and have the exact same problems. I've had siblings, you know, so.
Have you had the opportunity to help a child and then the parent says, hey, I need this too? And then you turn on and do the therapy on the parent as well?
Yeah.
How cool.
Yeah,
tell us a little, I mean, obviously without names and all that jazz, but yeah.
I had a little girl. I don't remember how old she was, but she was just a cute little thing. And she had some issues, and actually quite a few. And we worked with her, and I worked with her and Dr. Carter as well. And oh gosh, she just got so much better so quickly. And her mom, during this whole course of action, was, you know, I could never do that. I can't do this either. I can't do that. You know, I tried to do that with her, and I can't do it. And so finally, she was talking one day about her migraine headaches. And how her migraine headache, she had a really good job. And she was on a computer quite a bit, though, and she would just get these debilitating migraine headaches. And I just simply said to her, I said, you know, your little girl here has had these issues, and I think from talking to you, you have too. And now you're telling me you're getting these migraine headaches. I may be able to help you. So then I refer her to our Dr. Carter, who does all the exams for vision therapy. And sure enough, she came to me, and I don't know how it was so bad when we tried doing some of the things. She'd have to run outside real quick because she just couldn't even focus on anything. She'd lose her fit, you know. And she no longer has migraines. She'd had migraines for 40 years of her life.
Wow,
that's awesome.
So as far as a cost for a family, is this? And everyone's situation is going to be different, right. So I do understand that. Is there funding assistance? I know if you're going into the schools, is there any programs, or is this all basically at the time being privately paid?
It's basically at the time, most of it is being privately paid. Okay. We have had instances where a family simply could not afford it and the child was in such need that the Lions Club has picked up part of it.
Blessed Lions Club.
Oh, bless them, yes.
Yeah.
And the Galesburg Community Foundation, I think,
that's
currently
cool.
just paid. Now, I'm in the middle of, this is another thing we could talk about. I'm on the board of directors for a nonprofit that we're trying to get established and up and running to help kids that can't afford it because it is expensive and insurance does not cover it. So I don't even understand that. I do in a sense, but I don't in a sense. Right. So, you know, I understand that medical doctors are the people who are responsible for setting insurance codes. Therefore, we don't get consideration for that. So there's a desperate need out there for funding. A desperate need for funding. Where Melissa Kehoe, Pete Kehoe's wife, Dr. Kehoe, Melissa's a real good friend of mine, and she actually, I think, she and Pete spearheaded the beginning of this. It's called See, Learn, Succeed, and we should be up and running hopefully shortly. At least our website where donations can be made and things like that. And
Good. Well, I would love whenever that time comes to be able to help, whether through the radio station or whatever. I mean, that's very important. Would love to be able to help get that out.
Amazing.
For sure. What I recall, Pete Kehoe, when I sat through his presentation, I believe he was very involved in the prison system. So he was helping inmates and then identifying a heavy population of these inmates. I mean, they were having this disconnect.
A huge population of inmates in prison. And so
what makes that happen?
This is actually something I tell people sometimes just as a joke. I'm very sarcastic. You don't know me well enough to know that I'm a little sarcastic, and people will ask me what I do for a living. And I go, I help keep people out of prison because seriously, when you think about the path a person goes down, so let's say you have some of these vision issues and you're put in learning disability classes, then you're not offered the educational opportunities that
you already get a stigma. There's
you've
a
already
problem.
got. Yes, you've got a problem. You're a problem child. You can't learn the way everyone else does. Kids think, and I don't like to use this word because my grandkids will say, you said the S word, but kids think they're stupid, they think they're dumb. They think they can't learn. And so lots of times those are the kids that will take the wrong path in life.
Or give up.
Or give up and just think, what's the point? I can't do it anyway, so I might as well do this,
Right.
whatever. So, and it's very sad to me because if those people could have been helped when they were children, their life, like I said, the trajectory, their life changes then. So maybe they wouldn't be where they are.
Right. Yeah, I found it so interesting when Pete was sharing that stuff because it's there's a direct correlation between these people and having this ability or inability to progress educationally or mentally, physically, and then you just automatically kind of pigeonhole or feel limited, and it just leads you down a path from a very early age that there's something wrong with you. And so to find yourself in prison with all these people, and then Pete is over here, uncovering, it was really, really interesting. That's why literally, I think it was 10 years ago. Yeah. It still stuck with me. And so I was really, really excited when we knew we were getting
it breaks my heart in a way. I mean, it really does break my heart. What breaks my heart is when all of the stuff I do, and as a vision therapist, we send home homework. We don't like to call it homework. We call it home assignments, but same thing, homework. And they have to do it every night. What breaks my heart is if I get a parent bringing their child in and they don't enforce that at home, it's going to take 2 to 3 times longer for me to do my job then. Right. And that breaks my heart a little bit because I really, most of my parents are wonderful. So I'm not saying all of them, but I have had a parent or two where I'm perplexed by that. Yeah. And, I guess that just goes to society. So there's always going to be, good out, bad out, whatever. Right. But and it's like, man, what aren't you getting? It's your child or whatever. But, everyone's different too. That parent may be working 5 jobs and, limited on time. And it's not a reflection of them not caring necessarily. Exactly.
We always know.
So I try to always work with them and see what we can do to make it a better situation. But
What were you about to say?
If someone wants to be a vision therapist, what do they need to do? Is there a school for that? Is there a major?
There are currently. I took my classes through College of Optometrists for Vision Development, COVD, like very similar to COVID. But there are very few colleges actually that offer vision therapy courses. Okay. So my journey to vision therapy was a little bit different. My journey to vision therapy was I had an eye paralysis. I woke up in bed when I was 42, I think, and I could not understand how did they come in and put another matching ceiling fan on my ceiling when I was sleeping. Did I sleep that sound? And where did they find a fan to match that one? Exactly. I had double vision. My right eye was paralyzed and it stayed straight ahead, and this one moved all over the place. And so I saw 2 of everything. I had what they call a 6th cranial nerve palsy. And so to make a long story short, my daughter is an optometrist up in the Quad Cities. Okay. And after my husband passed away, I was like, I just need to do something. And she's like, well, come work for me. I'll teach you some stuff. And so I went to work for her. And she employed, I think, about probably 5 or 6 different optometrists at the time. And my office always ended up being the place where everybody came to hang out. All the doctors, if they had a no-show patient, they were in my office just hanging out. And over the course of time, I told them how I had gotten my eye to work. I had a physical therapy background, so how I got my eye to work and what I did. And one of the doctors said, that's interesting. He goes, you did your own vision therapy. And I was like, that's a thing? I was like, wait, vision therapy is a thing? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I was like, I have to do that. I don't know why. And over the course of time, when I was working for my daughter, probably 4 or 5 different doctors kept bringing up vision therapy. I had literally never heard of vision therapy before. So I knew the Kehoes, and Melissa's sister Kelly, who's just one of my dear friends, she posted a thing on Facebook, said they were hiring a vision therapist, wanted a master's in education, would train the right person, blah, blah, blah. So I went in and I went in for an interview and I said, I don't have a master's, but I'm the right person. Right. Because I just had I felt like I had a vested interest, and like maybe what happened to me was for a reason, and this was the reason.
Right.
I just really had that feeling like I was being called to it. So, long story short, I got hired. I did all the classes. I did the work. Dr. Carter, I work with Dr. Anthony Carter at Kehoe Eye Care, and he's brilliant. I can't even tell you. He's brilliant with his, he taught me so much and continues to teach me. Mm-hmm. And I've taught him some jokes. But we work very well together, and can I take you through the process of vision therapy real quick?
Heck
okay,
yeah.
So the process would be a child would come in for testing, or an adult, because we get stroke patients that have eye paralysis and people who have double vision and things like that. So come in for your evaluations. Then you come in to see me, and we work through this whole process. And depending on, you may have 11 issues. So if you've got one, it's going to be a pretty quick fix. If you've got 11, it's going to take a lot longer. Okay? Sometimes one is really hard to fix, like we talked about with bringing the eyes out. That's a hard one. So that takes a little longer too. But Dr. Carter and I meet once a week. So I work with everyone twice a week. And then weekly we have a meeting, and I discuss with him the progress and what's happening. And so he can kind of have a hands-on too. And then he'll say, well, let's try this, or let's try this. Or I may say, this is really difficult and I'm having a hard time getting this. Well, let's try this instead. He's brilliant about that stuff. So we work together a lot. And then about every 16 to 20 sessions, he'll see the patient again for a progress check to see how they're doing.
Yeah.
And then we just work with them until we're done. You can't really say when that's going to be, but you know.
Right. But yeah, and like you said, everyone's different. Some might be a couple sessions, and some might be a couple months or a year. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've only had a couple patients for over a year, but I have had patients for over a year before. Yeah.
And a lot of it probably just depends too on what their investment is. Like you said, when you go home, are you doing the assignments? Are you making sure that we're doing that? So yeah, it probably depends on the...
Yeah, for the most part, I have probably the most amazing parents in the world, because they're so excited to know there's something that can help their child, and they really want to work hard at it.
Right. How cool.
And that's a majority of the parents that I work with, so it is cool.
So do you see vision therapy continuing to evolve and grow? I mean, obviously, it needs to.
Yeah, it needs to. Yeah, and so one of my goals with... one of our goals, I shouldn't say my goal, but one of our goals with the nonprofit is education. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. To be able to educate our educators, to be able to educate our pediatricians, our neurologists, just to let them know that there is something available that may be a road that can help this patient, or this person, or this child, because if you don't even know it's available and you haven't seen results, and people are skeptical.
Right.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
I see miracles. I always say I have a job where I see little miracles happen every day.
Yeah.
That's what makes me come back every day is, one of those little miracles might happen today.
Yeah.
So.
But when it comes to our health, and let alone our children, we don't want to mess around.
Yeah, that's important.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. I mean, if somebody wants to, they've listened to this and they're like, man, I need to sit down with Miss Susan here.
Right.
How would one go about taking that next step?
Okay. So if your child or if you have, say, a double vision issue, or you've something, like a paralysis of your eye, something like that, or if your child is struggling with learning, just what you would consider learning disabilities, or just slow learning. If you're really struggling with their reading, if you're really struggling with their math skills, if you're really struggling with, they just seem clumsy all the time, and that may not be that big of a struggle. You just think they're clumsy, and why do they fall down every time they walk up that step? It's because they don't see it's raised.
Yeah.
Things like that. If you're having struggles with any of that stuff, if your child has a lazy eye, if your child, there's so many different things. But if you think there's an issue, you could call Kehoe Eye Care, and then they would refer you to Dr. Carter for a vision therapy evaluation. I think he does a pre-evaluation, and then we do the testing if he seems to think it's necessary. And then from there, he'll give you recommendations.
Nice.
And sometimes they'll try other things first, because sometimes maybe there's something else that will fix it, that will just kind of kick the brain on. But then, maybe they've tried something and it didn't quite work the way they wanted it to, then they'll bring them to me.
Right.
And I try to make it fun for the kids. I'm kind of one of those crazy people.
Well, that's what, hey, you gotta be. You gotta be unique and have fun.
We have a 30-second dance party button.
Do you want to do that now?
No. I should have brought it, though. It's so much fun. The kids have different levels of, like you'll start in level 1, you go up to level 2 in this, and then you'll go up to level 3. And every time they go up a level in any of their stuff, I just hit this button and this really weird guy goes 30-second dance party. And then all this dance music comes on and I give them 30 seconds to run around my room, which is like a big gymnasium almost. I've got a swing hanging down from the ceiling, and I've got an exercise mat, and I've got all these things up, It's just kind of a fun place. So they get 30 seconds of doing whatever they want. And then when the dance music stops, they have to be back in their chair and ready to go again. So, but
we should get one of those for the show.
They are amazing. Yeah.
30-second dance
30-second. I got it on the Zon. So
Well, thank you so much for coming in and sharing this. I would encourage anyone listening. I mean, if you even think there might be an opportunity to better your child's position or yourself, don't hesitate. Reach out. There's only one way to find out, and that's to sit down and maybe have some of these tests ran. And worst case scenario, you're right back where you were before. But at least give it a try and check it out.
It was very informative. Thank you.
Yeah, I would love it if you guys came over someday. Just give me a call and we'll set a time up, and you could come see my office. It's the coolest place in the world.
Yeah, well, I'll come for the 30-second dance party for sure. So
definitely.
You don't have to tell me twice.
It's just the neatest place in the world. It makes me happy. The kids feel happy when they walk in, and I have candy jars all lined up against the back wall, and they all get to pick a piece of candy when they're done. And
that's cool.
I try to make it a good experience for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you're doing a great job. Like you said, our mutual friend or client that reached out to me, it's a mother who is above and beyond happy with the progress.
Love her,
And she's like, oh my
and
gosh,
child.
Lauren, please have this lady on so more mothers like myself and parents can hear about this opportunity.
That's
so
awesome.
Hopefully we were able to do that to help you as well as to help some families and children. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. So Miss Susan Whitcomb, appreciate your time. Vision therapist with Kehoe Eye Care. Folks, you're tuned into the Talk About It podcast. We're having a lot of fun. We're going to continue to have fun every week, and don't miss it by hitting subscribe.
See you guys next week.
All right, Lauren Fulmer, Victor Dantas, Susan Whitcomb. Talk about it. Thank you for watching this episode of the Talk About It podcast.
I'm Victor Dantas.
I'm Lauren Fulmer.
And we would encourage you guys to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell. It's going to be right below the video. So you
hit
guys...
the bell.
So you know when the next episode is up.
We appreciate all the support.
Thank you.